questions at the end over there. I figured I'd get this thing going. Alan was, saying his hellos and shaking hands, kiss and babies for a few minutes, but I know a few people here have some things to say. And they get rolling. So without further ado, I'm going to start our meeting, and I'd like to bring up CEO Steve Wright.
After the end of this time, all here, so I can say hi to the Zoom people. Hello, Zoom people. Yeah, I can't move around. It's not going to be easy. So, all right. Yeah. All right, I'm not going to move. How's everybody doing? What do you want to talk about? Yeah, West. So I'm here. I just had a conversation with the hosts. They're having their orientation, and a lot of what I shared with them, probably kind of share that with you. The last time we had a conversation was we had this last year at this time, or we got together next door in January, I think, and at that point, we were sort of year 1.5 of the pandemic, and just sort of.
I saw a truck like after.
August.
The truck. Saw that.
With PGRI, Pacific Group Resorts, who ultimately ended up losing bid, and two other groups were involved in that auction as well. PGRI has been involved in negotiating 41 months. It took them that long to sit through it. They were the second potential buyer. They came on a tour 41 months ago, and came a total of 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 times more than the next most frequent longer here at the potential buyer. And the first time that we went through with them, Andy Sanger, myself, Walter Elander, we took them on the tour, and afterwards, and we weren't entirely sure that we thought that they would be a good fit, a really good fit. They're obviously a middle tier, middle tranche sort of ski area operator. They spoke our same language as it relates to operations, but financially we just didn't have any kind of optic into their ability to support business of this size. They operate Wisp, Wintergreen, and Ragged in the east, and Powderhorn, and Mount Washington out west, and they're all anywhere between 85 and 130,000 skier visits, 8 to 10 million top line, a couple million of EBITDA. And here we are at 300,000 plus with 55 or so of top, and 8 or 9 of you. So it's a different level of resort. They've leveled themselves up without question, both in terms of revenue and debt, that they had to bring them on board to take care of this sort of purchase. They, in and around August, the public number was $58 million that they had put forward. They got a stocking horse designation as being the first to the table. And I don't think that they had any real idea that 58 was going to be the final number to get it done. They realized they needed to have a little bit more powder available. But at that point, as we were dipping past 4th of July, they were the only folks that had put a number forward. Now, when that happened, when that number became public, interest really accelerated. At that point, I think a lot of the endemic ski area operators had thought that the number would be higher to start, and they didn't want to be first to the table to come up with that number. Getting that stocking horse designation is what motivates a potential buyer to put that number first. So when that number 58 came out, not only did we have ski resort operators that were interested, we had 2 or 3 new ski area operators that we had never spoken to before come in full tours, full diligence package, the whole shooting match. But we also had some other non endemic operators, and businesses come through, hotel operators, things like that, had no experience running ski areas, and no idea what it would take to sort of run a ski area, which, although they were very excited when we went through it, Andy and I specifically spent a lot of time with these guys. They were great teams, really affable people, no idea at all about the madness of running a ski area especially for 6 months. You know, there's a lot of good experience running hotels, but that's only a piece of this puzzle of it. So we flashed forward to that middle of August. The auction happens. You know, at that point, the receiver, Michael Goldberg, was happy that there was going to be an auction. There were going to be 3 people sort of bidding against each other. And the format of that was, if anybody has ever been in mediation for anything, sort of, this was a physical auction. It took place in the cloud, so to speak. The buyers had their own rooms. The attorneys in Manhattan had their own room. Goldberg, the receiver, had his own room. I was in a room to start out. There were increments that these folks needed to pop up past that $58 million to continue moving that number up. You know, and Michael at the time had thought, I feel fine in talking about these numbers because obviously they're all public. But he thought, if we got into the low 60s, and he had done his job, he could walk away from this thing pretty good. So, you know, it took a little bit for the momentum to build. There was a half hour, 45 minutes of laying the groundwork for how the auction could happen. And the first few bids came through. Media started to show up here on campus CAX first year about 10:30 that morning. We got to about noon, and the number had crested 60, which is right about where Michael had looked at see this trend. At that point, we'd seen 3 or 4 more trucks show up. We had an UTC able to start to show up. A couple of stringers from the pre-press, unsurprisingly bigger had somebody here. So at that point, I dipped out of the cyber auction and started to deal with the press. But I felt like we were getting close to a point where we have something to announce, and the number continued to go up. Right, we got into the low 60s and the mid 60s, where Michael started to call me and say, "This is we're getting into territory I wasn't really expecting to be in." And there were a few points in that afternoon where I was literally on live with some of the TV stations with my phone going off on my pocket, where I expected to be able to say, and here's the number, and it was Michael saying, "Well, we're out there at 67, 68." So I ended up going back into the office, and at that point I had, staff knew the auction was happening and sort of forecasted that it would be finished by sometime in the mid-afternoon and have something to talk about. Obviously saying stuff finished at that point. We got to 4 or 5 o'clock. My phone goes off, and it is the principal from one of the potentials that was in the auction that had dropped out. And they had said, "Steve, we're out. We really would have loved to have been part of this. We sort of didn't really understand what we were getting into, but we had a really good feel that the team there, and there'd be a good match, and that we would have done some good things together." But they just got a number. But Michael called and said, "Hey, somebody just dropped out." I know, I just got the phone. So 2 left at this point, and this potential buyer said these 2 they're gonna drag this up. Both of these guys are armed, they're ready to go, or ready to continue. So, and then we ended up getting to about 5 o'clock, 5:30. The other buyer calls, says the same, a different version of the same story. We really wanted to be part of this. We pushed it well past where we were comfortable, and we still couldn't hold on. Good luck. Michael calls again to tell me that we have a buyer. I said, "Guys, come on." Unfortunately, at that point, I still couldn't say anything to the staff, because it's not enough of the receiver to prove that number. The forecasting it's largely a kind of a perfunctory act, but the receiver has to present it in the court needs to prove it. It's closed for the day. So, we had to wait until 9 o'clock the next morning, so I had to, you know, it was frustrating for me, I had to go home that night, I couldn't say anything, people approached me and talking to staff, I think I told Andy, and that probably was about it, and couldn't really say anything until 9 o'clock the next morning, very quickly it was approved, and very quickly we were able to have that conversation with staff, let them know, who the new buyer was. So that, at that point, we had thought that it may take up to a month to close. By we, I mean not me, somebody else's, how long it's going to take. And it was well past that. We had 3 close dates that we missed, really just because of the administrative burden on this thing. It's not like typical $60 million for sale. You know, you have receivership online, you've got investors that have interest in it. You know, you have local, you know, bonds and things that you transfer. There's a lot big lift to this. And there needed to be an agreement on a go-forward basis of how do you close the books on JP Inc., which effectively is no more, and begin the new set of books with JP Pacific LLC, which is sort of the holding company here for the new entity. So we missed a few of those dates, and then finally this week on the 1st, I just got back from Las Vegas that day. Took a few days, went out there, and then we closed that that day at first, and the PGRI folks, specifically Vern Greco, who is the president and CEO, and Mark Fisher, executive VP and CFO, out here. We got a meeting here the day that the close became official with about 200 staff members, a couple of local community members snuck in. Essentially, at least one village board member that's how rhyme with like Steve's. And it was a good meeting. I'm sure Mike can back that up a little too. That the vibe was very good. We had a conversation the day before about starting pay for staff. You know, this has probably been the best year that we've had during receivership with respect to staffing. It's not a lot of businesses have the ability to say, right, staffing, labor economy, it's difficult everywhere. That we've had a very good year. And our conversation was really geared around minimum wage here. Very good staffing, minimum wage in some cases still in the low to mid 13s for some positions. And we had that conversation. What we talked about was the reality that at Dragon and at West and at Winter, starting pay of $17 in this company. And we'll do 3 times the dollar payroll. So what we had talked about was, listen, you know, our staff gets wind of the fact that, you know, we're below that, and we contribute more on a profit basis than anybody that you have in the company that is liable to head scratching. So really the best cut you could possibly get you have here. The first inning of this thing would be to get that number 17, say, announced at the meeting, about 13.50 to a minimum wage, $17 an hour. And that will impact people at the 17, 18, 19, 20, $21 an hour as well, as that compression rolls up through. There's probably going to be $1.5 million of wage increases right in this first 6 months. That's a big deal for the staff here. Obviously, but and obviously are the reason that, you know, the number went from 58 to 76. Right, these ski resorts. Like any other business, sell at a multiple of even a multiple against even put 400 million in this place, but that's, you don't sell a business based on construction costs, predicated against profitability. And we went from a negative number in fiscal 16 to, you know, almost $9 million last year, a little bit more than that. So and really attribute staff absolutely could have dipped at any point in that 6 or 7 years gone, probably made more money from a stable business, but we stuck it out here because, you know, in reality they feel like there's something bigger that they represent. You know, I feel that, Andy feels that, the whole staff, all those people that's in here this past Tuesday felt that. So very very good to not only see them recognized by these 2 principals of the company, but to have them, you know, financially impacted real meaningful way, at the same time. So, I think the plan going forward, the next few weeks will largely be, trying to move accounting systems, payroll systems, benefit 401k, that sort of switchovers are all happening at this point. And then we're gonna make snow Monday night. That's probably good. We got about a 2-hour window. See again. How's something close to stuff. But that'll happen probably Monday night. The next couple of weeks, like I said, we'll see PTRI folks in here. Happy to take some questions. I will say that season passes will be, it hasn't been announced yet. So season season passes will JP season passes will end up being fully transferable for PGR resorts, back at this Homeowners. I think you're going to get a number of days at Washington, 7 to 10 days there, and then the PGRI season passes that are to the public will get all of them will get a certain number of days here. It's not going to be dragging on sells 5,000 to 6,000 passes, so we're a little bit concerned about the potential volume on that front, being able to press us in that way here. Look at where we're at right now. The index of U.S. visitors last year increased more than 25%. And then as we're in this year, season passes are already up about 12% units. Package bookings are up 20% pace against last year. They're up 15% pace against fiscal 19, which was a record. So we're a little bit concerned there. Advanced lift ticket purchases are up. We're going to be coming out next week with a multiple ticket discount package that I'm guessing will sell pretty well as well. So all roads lead to there being some heavy pressure this year. That's something that we're going to have to and are doing right now, trying to factor into the way we plan on operating. Happy to answer some questions. Or yeah. The question was were all the properties included in the sale? As it relates to JP, the JP properties were included in the sale. There were some pieces of land that were owned by Kiros that are not part of the sale. Obviously, Burke is not part of the sale. The question is all of the assets here: the water park, the skating rink, the climate center, everything on the contiguous kind of property everything was included in. Yeah. We have questions, the possibility of increasing access to water for snowmaking. That is on the table, as is replacing the Bonnie and a new cadence of lift changes that go with that. If we're going to do that for next season, it's a decision that we have to make pretty quickly. You won't see a snowmaking project initiate that quickly. See a lift project. It's one of those things that will get built into the CapEx conversations that we end up having here in short term. Yeah.
Steve, did the bidders know who they were bidding against? It's like everyone on the same call.
Good question. The question was, did the bidders know who they were bidding against? They didn't. They had no idea who they were bidding against, and that was the most popular question post auction was who else was involved. We weren't specifically told not to talk about it. I talked with those two parties, and on the side they said, "Well, I'm not going to sleep over, but I appreciate it." So out of deference to that, I'm not going to say anything. But they were, kind of mid-range kind of hotel companies, like I said originally. They have a lot of ski experience, so they would have been hell of a fun crew to work with, but they may have had their eyes open once we got to see. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, will they get involved with operations and also lifts and facilities? Right? On the lift front, no, they're not gonna really be involved with that. When you, in terms of operating, but when you look at, sort of that corporate level at the Pacific Group, there are 3 people there at that senior level versus Vail has 450 or Altera that has 300. They don't have the bandwidth, the capacity, or really the interest in getting in at that kind of granular level. I think what they have to do, and what we've talked about, is to start to build some teams with maybe there's a beverage representative from JP, from Wintergreen, from Wisp, that maybe get together a couple of times a year to talk about best practices, where something like that can come in, you start to gang your buys, try to drive costs down, menu items, fuel, that sort of thing, and try to gang your purchases so you can start to drive costs down the whole company. They don't do that at all right now. By adding JP into their mix, they completely, they're still a senior company, they completely changed their model. But they have to add more weight at that senior level, especially as it relates to finance, to help with this, because it's a big lift for them. They're going to really, as they do right now, they're going to really rely on the teams here to run this place operationally. They're going to be in the background providing CapEx support, financial support, but from an operative level, they just don't have that. So hopefully down the road, you'll start to see that practice. Yeah.
I don't know, Captain, but that with the money on 50, by the time it's all wrapped up,
Don't have that. I don't have what the percentage is. I know that 76 million was better for them on an index basis than 58 was, obviously. But it's still, if I had to proper guess, I would say it's less than 45 cents on the dollar. That's a guess. Yeah.
they come in, anything in line for inclusion? That's something that's worked in today's time.
No, I mean they've asked us. They've really been pushing Andy, myself, and Walter on where the whole 6 money is not an object privilege to go sort of thing. So they have a greatest hits list, and there's numbers that are going to be against all that. We'll have to do ROI models against all of that stuff, figure out how soon get me a goal on these things. And then there's a lot of maintenance capital, obviously, a lot of buildings here. And we've done a pretty good job of keeping that up through receivership. We have a lot of mattresses and hotels, a lot of window trees, a lot of carpets, that sort of thing. So they're going to have to factor that against all of this related capital.
Staffing.
Question is how's the staffing for the winter? Like I said, it's we talk about this on Halloween. For being at Halloween, it's by far the best that we've had during the receivership. Since I've been here 20 years, so that's sort of difficult positions to fill, like snowmakers and groomers, both housekeepers and completely gone to the international market and are bringing in international kids to do that, almost completely full. Lift attendants, we've got more returning than we've ever had before, and we've got an eye on a bunch of new ones, so I'd say we're pretty close to completely full there. Lifeguards, we're going into the J1 market for them. I think we're going to be okay with that. Anything I've learned from leadership is the deep love of the lazy river.
Sweetie.
The lazy, having enough lifeguards so we can operate that park fully. It's something obviously we have to do. But the volume positions, those ones that take 30 to 50, are very good shape against. So we need a few shuttle drivers, we need a few lifeguards. After that, we're in very, very good shape. And that was before we announced $17 starting wage. So oddly enough, the day that we announced the starting wage, we had a job fair that night. So we armed HR with a whole different set of tools. When I went into that, and the folks that wandered in, who heard that was the start of really a deep change in quantities. There were a bunch of positions that we had that night that came in for the space. Yeah.
In receivership, wasn't there a hospitality company or personnel?
Leisure, yeah.
What happens to them?
Their leisure's gone. Yeah, they did a lot of the financial accounting as it related to the 85 partnerships. So they didn't really get into operations, but a representative of Leisure will continue to be sort of a JP Inc. shepherd, so that invoices that come in that really should be paid by the previous entity, they'll go in that direction. And anything that should be paid by the new entity will get steered our way. Probably 3 months that will get unwound and you won't see anything. I feel Alan. If there's anything else, I'll hang around for a little bit. If you want to come up and send me a note at any point. Thanks, everybody.
Steve, it's always a tough act to follow, Steve. I'd like to, before starting, I'm going to do the introduction to the individual board members and the issues that they are largely responsible for. So I'll introduce, first of all, Caitlin, wearing a mask today, and her husband, Mike, and the other Mike in the light colored shirt, Don Mesky, he, and Fabian. During the presentation, Andy Stanger is going to be presenting some of the services, no, all of the services that you provides to the HOA, because we are very much reliant on these services such as smoke clearing, John and garbage removal, etc. And I'd like to acknowledge the previous and original president of the HOA, Marty. Marty, would you stand up and take a round of applause? So we, as you may have seen, we posted the results, our fiscal year ends in June. Posted the results for the previous fiscal year on the website. I hope many of you have already reviewed them. The results were very good. We had a surplus of $50,000 on the bottom line, which we transferred to the group reserve. As you will hear during the course of this meeting, there are a number of issues that come up related to replacing the groups, and we were happy to be able to put that 50,000. So although we had a good year, there are a couple of elephants in the room that I would like to address right now, so that you have an idea of what will be coming up in the individual presentation. First one is related to the roof replacement. In the year 2004 and 2005, JP built half of the units, half of the buildings in each way. 16 buildings were built during that time. 7 in 2004, same in 2005, and another 2 units in 2006. That creates an enormous funding challenge for homeowners. It's a $2 million funding challenge. At the current rate that we approve monies every year, we set aside a provision of LPD, how much is it now? 175? Yes. Yeah, roughly 200,000. That's not going to be enough for us to generate the $2 million that we will need to run that from 8 years from now in order to be able to do those groups. The board has discussed this on a number of occasions. My own view is that we will need to arrange some form of bridge financing to get us over that time, because of course, once we finish the last of the units, then we have a 30-year hiatus until we have to start replacing the roofs again. I won't be around. I know that Caitlin is going to discuss some of the issues on the financial statement. The second issue is the performance of the board members in their responsibilities, acting as basically management people for the HOA. The board has decided that going forward, we will hire a general manager on-site person who will handle most of the day-to-day issues and will complement what has been done by Wendy. Wendy will continue with her liaison responsibilities, and we expect that the general manager will be able to work at a higher level, coordinating the work of various contractors in the Northeast Kingdom. As you're probably all aware, it's getting increasingly difficult to find contractors, and then once you found them, to make sure that they're able to schedule their work well. For example, this year we had difficulty when painters turn up and wood that they're going to be painting has to get being repaired by the carpenters. And the carpenters can't come because certain siding works. So coordination is important. During the year, Mike had a big roof replacement. We had anticipated that during the year we would replace 4 roofs. We're going to have done 5 by the time the last one was completed. We had intended, we had estimated that the 4 roofs would cost $470,000. So by the time we're finished and the actual costs are in, I think you can assume that the total costs are going to be roughly in the region of $500,000. That's how much it costs to put these better roofs on. At the last AGM, you will recall that Tom Nesky and I received a credit towards our common fees, $1,000 during the year. The board, in recognition of the fact that considerable effort, we added Mike to that. So effective October 1st, Mike received the credit. We'll take questions later. Let me finish first. At the AGM a year ago, we were fortunate being able to recruit Randy Gordon, Caitlin, Mike, and Michael were included. The other 2 people, when they found out how much work it was involved, they resigned during the resigned from the board and second time. So that's background also to why we're going to go for the general manager position. We're going to take questions at the end of the presentations. I want to make sure the question. Todd Sestari is asking. Okay. It's less the question. First of all, I've mentioned a couple of times decisions that the board made, wondering when those decisions were made, whether it's remote. Secondly, giving compensation to board members is not allowed. In the case of Don voted on about 5 years ago, I think, but it was voted on by the entire association, and it was voted on to be temporary. We have never since brought it up again to find out if the practice. The purpose of that practice at the time was because you and Don were making successive trips to JP for making weekly trips, and it was intended to help compensate for all of those trips. I don't think those trips were happening during the pandemic. I'm not commenting on how much time and effort people put into this position. I'm just commenting on the intent of that compensation. Last year, when it came up at the meeting, to compensate all board members, it was basically decided that there could not be a Now let's take upon stuff. Wondering where the rationality of that is. To summarize Todd's question for the benefit of the remote participants, Todd doesn't like the idea that board members should be receiving credit. We do not use the term compensation. It's not compensation. It's not earned income. It's merely a credit which is intended to compensate for costs and the effort that board members participate. I've been on the board for, I think we joined the board in 2010, Doc.
Just maybe speak closer to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don and I joined the board in 2010 when the entire board quit. Everyone on the board resigned at the AGM because of a number of issues. And we kind of looked at each other and said, what are we going to do? What happens here? I had recently retired, so I volunteered. We convinced Don, who was on the previous board, to stay on. Both Don and I have announced that we will commit after this AGM to 1 more year of service on the board, and then we will step down. I firmly believe that in order to incent homeowners to participate on the board, that some recognition is required. That's why I did brought up last AGM and did not go through, as Todd said, because there was some disagreement about the number of board members that the bylaws permit. That has been clarified. We can have any number of directors on the board.
Say, next meeting, we go on the
Okay.
compensation, the credit, whatever you want.
Comment from the board was that maybe the group should get together and consider, examine the bylaws and have a separate meeting. And then have a full conversation. I'd be willing to go along with that. But I firmly believe that Todd's second question is why haven't there been any minutes of board meetings? Reality is, Todd, we don't have a secretary. Like I said earlier, lock the doors here. We're not going to open the doors until someone volunteers to be the secretary. But so instead of having formal board meetings when contractors or a general manager or Andy Stanger or whoever come to the board and report on what they're doing, the board has been active in managing issues. I get emails almost every week on a variety of issues. I didn't sign up for this, and the 2 board members who joined last year and resigned during the year also did not appreciate, did not understand the amount of detailed effort that is required. We're not functioning as a board. We're individually, actively involved in managing certain issues. I don't know what Mike did. Especially Mike. Mike has saved this HOA. I don't know how much money during the year, but certainly a lot more than $1,000 that we get on October the 1st. And I think it's a good idea that the board and any other HOA members that want to participate are welcome. But nice. So
So the board might, they're acting as a management company. I own 2 management companies, contact the boards. It's the worst job in the world.
is something that nobody really should do when they're doing it. And they save us a ton of money, and I am thankful that they're here and actually save us money. The credit that we're deciding to give to Mike, I warranted and appreciated that. I understand the reality else with it. I think the issues on the file, aggravation of the board that's working their butts off to help us all. I think they're finding a job and done after 30 years. And I think we all should appreciate that. Not many issues that are big issues.
What he said.
Well, I knew that part wasn't going to be easy, but last bullet here, since our meeting in last December, we have welcomed 8 new homeowners. I would ask anyone present in the room who's new homeowners like that, try themselves.
It's not.
That's not new. This way, the remote participants can hear the questions.
With Mary. Very.
Who's controlling it?
I got it.
Okay, who's doing this one?
He's gonna. I was gonna present, but I woke up with a really sore throat. So
Caitlin does not have COVID, just so we're all aware.
take that.
She did take that this morning. We do have small kids that are acceptable and parents.
After the boring topics of snow making and new lift, like, there's good exciting stuff, the finance of the association. So as Anna already mentioned, we have a good year. We, so I don't go through all of that, but we have some important savings on snow making and snow removal, which is a good and bad news at the same time. Last year we didn't get that much snow, so hopefully next year we'll have a big deficit in the snow removal budget. I think we can go straight to the next slide.
We can make the site available if people don't want to take pictures.
So so we have a good year, but one thing we see that very obvious on that thing is the cash and the capital reserve have been down significantly. Because we have replaced a fair amount of roofs, so we'll have replaced 5 roofs this year, 2 roofs last year, and the payment of the 2 roofs last year happened mainly this year. So obviously expenses for the roof are very high. That's why we increase the capital roofing reserve, and that will already I haven't thought about that on the long term, we should do that, but that's we talk more about roofing, but that roofing replacing 7 roofs would have been replaced by the end of the year. So that's why the cash and the capital reserve went down significantly. Everything else is relatively stable.
The note.
We still do have a note receivable from JP on down to for 145.
Oh, yes. We noticed from GP, so we have an agreement that we're supposed to receive $125,000. Now that the transaction is done, we still hope that we'll receive that money. I think we should know pretty soon. So next year, that hopefully will be the cash part of the thing. But it's still uncertainty, and we'll know hopefully more sooner than later about that. So they say, just want to raise like this, some, these few delinquent, homeowner, most of the homeowner pay their due when they're due, but we have a 55,000 borrower that is due more than 90 days past due, and some of that is way more than 90 days, so we like to encourage everybody to pay their due when they receive it, like, and then, there's a number of unit where past due more than 90 days on the screen, so both the declaration and the association rule say that you have to pay your due on time, so hopefully that will be resolved. If not, we'll look at some ways to find to collect that money. So that's a service provided by Jay, is it?
Andy?
Hi, everybody. My name is Ian Singer. I'm the director of facilities here at JP. I've been here about 20 years. Wanted to talk today about the services JP provides the HOA. They're listed on the screen, and what I have to do is go through them all, put a little detail to them, and then ask questions. The way this works is every year, probably in April or so, I'll get with the board and we'll go through performance from last year and come up with an operating budget for services that we provide, and we use past performance, what we think we're gonna do for business this coming year, and pick some numbers and hopefully meet them or stable. Usually we stay pretty close to the first item is snow removal. That's $167,000. That's a pretty even split between trucks, loaders, heavy equipment, salt, sand, and then snow shoveling crew. And I'm sure all of you have seen the shoveling crew of the plow truck drivers. They do amazing work. The storm crew goes out at about 6 a.m. Depending on the size of the storm, they'll usually have the resort cleaned up by 1 o'clock. Sometimes it's a little longer. Rubbish removal, that is it's the same guys that shovel the snow when they're not shoveling snow, or while they're shoveling snow, they're also taking the trash out. About half of that, $75,000 labor. The other half is an allocation that gets sent to all the JP buildings, all the condominiums we own, all these different HOAs. That's an allocation that sell at the landfill Coventry, trash to the building. Stormwater annual maintenance is $46,000. And I often get questions about what this is. Since the early 1990s, the state of Vermont has mandated that any construction project that is over 1 acre of impervious surface needs to have an active stormwater system. And impervious surface is, for those of you that don't know, is water that doesn't soak into the ground. So roads, roofs, parking lots are all impervious surfaces. There's about 50 acres of those surfaces at JP. About 8 acres are in the village. So you pay a percentage of the total stormwater budget, which annually for the resort is about $300,000. So your share on 8 acres, $46,000. What that includes are permitting, engineering, going through and cleaning, settling ponds, ditches, roadside swales, stormwater maintenance. The actual cost for that will go up and down depending on the year and what maintenance is required, but we stick to a one number and adjust that. We'll go up a little bit for labor every 2 years. Try to plug in the same number. Sewer and water. Sewer is the Troy sewer plant charges us about 1/10 of a penny for every gallon of sewage that goes down to the plant. There's a metering manhole outside of the resort entrance. So all of your guys flow, everything goes through this manhole, and there's an allocation. It's all the different HOAs, in building we own based on veteran count. So the sewer number that the village pays is based on the actual flows that go through meter and home. About half of that, 77,000 is, actually probably about a third of the 77,000 is water system. And what that covers is labor and maintenance costs on the water system here at the mountain. We are basically we're a municipal water system. We own and operate a water system. There's 2 reservoirs, 13 drilled wells, staff that operate and maintain them. That's the water and the sewer. Building maintenance, 35,000, I believe, 27,000 of that is for gutter cleaning. We'll go through and clean gutters twice annually. Important thing. Rest of that is for maintenance tasks that the board will hire us to do. We don't know what they are. They cost $8,000. Security, labor. We've got a 24/7 security department. That's $6,000. Will cover noise disturbance calls, parking disturbance calls. It does not cover us going through checking doors every day, every other day. Some people think it does. That is not in that rate. Strictly, if someone calls us. Telephone line insurance, that is fiber optic cable insurance activity. If any of you have a problem in your unit with internet, TV, that basically covers our IT department coming in and fixing it. It doesn't cover equipment, but and then the meetings and events, that covers that's what we do. Marty. Pardon me?
Any arrangement they make in association with the so we don't get $150 charges to protect them.
No, there's not.
Any reason why?
Well, you probably 5 or 6 years ago, the village board decided to not hire JP as the property manager anymore and hired Wendy. So Wendy is the management company to take care of repairs and maintenance. We will respond if requested to ask to fix stuff, but I think the board has communicated to every homeowner that what the procedures are and who to call if you need work done. We certainly could be, yeah, that would be something we would want to discuss with the board. And I suggest you take it up with them and they'll take it up with me. What was your question? If you're talking trash and is recycling done in Troy, is that what?
Recycling of
Yeah. No, correct. Yes, it is. Yeah, there's 2 bins. There's green bins and blue bins.
Excuse me, Andy. I've been asked by members that
Yeah, there is, and we've been in discussions with Casella about it. The tough part is, the volume of it and leaving compost bins in front of units that don't, get actively used all that much. I mean, we would have to empty these bins up daily or every other day, or things are going to rot and there's going to be more animal problems than we currently have.
been asked to respond.
It was natural on Wednesday at the staff meeting, actually.
People that are viewing 30
The new owners mentioned as, there's a list of problems. Composting probably in the middle, bottom third, and we all know that it's a problem, and trying to get addressed as it's everything, it's how to get down the line. Problem is that the availability of composting facilities.
I think one possible option that for homeowners, not necessarily renters, would be to have a central composting area at JP where you can bring the composting to rather than in front of your building. It'd be more manageable for us, and better result for everybody. Go ahead.
And you're over here. Last spring, the roads turned to bush. And you guys came out there at a moment's notice and set up trucks to rock. It's greatly appreciated. Super fair. Saw other part from New Jersey that did not make through. Where does that cost land? Is that a JP cost or is that a village cost?
No, that would be a village cost, and that's actually not on here. There's a summer roads budget that I noticed this morning wasn't on there. I want to say it's about $15,000 annually, and that's where that type of charge.
We had the budget and the actual cost was about
Oh, 8,000. Okay. But I remember that too. We had to get Alan. Alan was trying to leave the resort. We had to.
because we had the COVID test to get back over the border. I mean, time wasn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting.
Do these costs also have the 25% increase that Steve was talked about? All the rates going up from $13 to $17 now.
No, we'll absorb that this year, and you'll probably see something added next year.
Station responsible. Maintenance and cutting of the vegetation.
On the ski trails?
Could you just
Are you
mention the question?
responsible for the cutting of vegetation?
So the question was, are we responsible for cutting the vegetation on the ski trails? JP is responsible. We hire out a subcontractor to do that. And
Because I noticed, many of the buildings have been cleared to the trails, we have access. to them, But our building is not. We're creating.
yeah, no, that's not something JP would have done.
Well, all the other trails have been cut to. You know,
It's a matter of being able to. Some buildings have direct access, some buildings don't have direct access. It's a matter of if the landscapers are able to get it in with an actual one or two. Ours was never done. I did it myself.
I thought,
So, if you have a request for it, you just ask us. It's the landscaping guys, and then we just have to figure out how to actually do it. Sometimes you're for the bridge, so just shoot an email to the general board and.
Are there any
We'll try to get it done
questions?
before it goes, but
I,
you're open.
yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
agree. We have several situations where no one's, so far, patients that I don't know. Water the units. Having to do it in the test. This is a drone on this, the same flash, very very long and long. He's very good person. I know it's a conversation, anyway. I can't let you get back to your cap. A day.
So the question is how is JP going to handle increased security issues on property? I think it's summary of the question. Yeah, it's a complicated answer. I think we've got security on staff 24/7. Our director of security is Tom Howell. He's an ex-Vermont state trooper, knows his way around problems in a big way. My suggestion would be to all of you, if you see something that doesn't look right, call us and we'll investigate it and we'll do what we can. All the instances that you just mentioned, we have been involved in, quite a bit, this summer and fall. And some, you may know that, or you may not know that. As far as drug dealers in units, we had a problem, recently where, a homeowner who rents their unit out independently of JP, rented it to some people that had questionable motives, and we found out about it. We contacted the homeowner, tried to get them out, tried to get them kicked out. We're a lot of times we're limited on what we can do, but we definitely understand this and care about it. So if you do see things that don't look right, call us and we'll dispatch our teams. Does that answer your question? What would you like to see from JP? I understand, and they're good points, and it wasn't too long ago that the security line item was, 3 or 4 times that amount, and we did provide more rounds, and if that's something you and all the homeowners are interested in, which I think you have good reason to be interested in, you should take that up with the board, and I think Ellen has a presentation on that, today. But it's real for sure. I mean, I see it, we hear about things going on and they're happening. So, I absolutely think that, ring doorbells are important. Cameras in your home are a great deterrent. And, if something doesn't look right, call us. And do the same thing you would do at your own house at home.
So I'm just gonna follow up on that with Andy, because I was dealing directly with Tom on this. Tom and I have had several conversations afterwards in the summer, some episodes. I'm actually the person who found said drug dealer on site, went and found Tom. And Tom's was like to be here today. Unfortunately, he had a family event that he had to deal with. Like Andy said, it's please, if you see something, bring it up. As a further up from the people that we found, and we know gentleman was armed, has since been arrested. The occupants of the vehicle that were on site, that we know because of the arrests made. There were 3 arrests made, all drug and firearm related individuals. All are being held without bail. But it does not mean that it's the problem is gone. If anybody has a security question, there is a security number you can call. They will pick up. They will pick up 24/7. The security numbers on the front of the security building. If anybody wants to email me or the board, we can share that. Maybe add that to the slides that we throw up on the website. But it comes down to all of us making sure that if you see something out of the ordinary, we're all accountable for each other, and we all want to make sure each other's properties are safe. That's Tom's biggest issue, is make sure that if you see something that you say something.
I think that, one of the story that that discussing. And when we started getting discussions, they about what was going to be provided for that price, things just weren't really matching up, and decided, okay, some, similar to accounting services, where we used to be billed a lot more for accounting services than we found an alternative. In this case, there is no other alternative to security services, and might be wise, I would say, association side, maybe start talking to JP and let's find some happy medium where you get some greater level of service than you do today, but you're not paying.
It's already a conversation that's been had. Tom and I go over this probably weekly. We talk, communicate, make sure that the issues that have come up we're both aware of. One thing Tom has asked is if we would increase our budget for security purposes. He's asked if we would purchase cameras that security would actually install them for us. These are all items that require us to increase our budget. These are all things that in the long run are just a dollar amount that seems to get bickered about too much. And if you put the whole in of what all the increases are, yeah, security is a big part of it. Tom would have no problem if we increase the amount of our budget. He said if we increased it enough, he'd add another person to staff. That's just a matter of actually increasing the budget and making sure everybody agrees. I don't have it on. I mean, as you walk out, it's right in the front of the. Sorry, it's right on the front of the building. I don't know if anybody knows where the security building is. It's right here next to Andy's office as we've kind of turned the chalets or the Shangri-La of.
It's just below the ice rink on the right hand side. Yes.
And again, I think that's something that Don has no problem posting.
It's on there.
It is on there.
Let's check.
So there we go. If you need that number again, you can go right to the homeowners website.
Any other questions? Okay.
That's not good. Yeah, we give that to we just want to try to get Andy what Andy has to deal with. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. Oh, yeah.
These people. There's so
And the SD card from my country. Who does that? Stole the camera from a camera, stole the card from a camera. There. Right. I have a question. I live in like Connecticut. Like No, the propane so far has been pretty disconnected from the shortage, natural gas and heating oil. We just locked in to a 1 year gas, so the rate was good. We should. Barring it get darker. All right, thanks everybody.
General manager.
Would you like to talk about general manager position?
No, I think we've covered that. Okay.
Just one.
Earlier on, we discussed the general manager. And we were going to be doing some additional work to form a subcommittee to have a look at what those responsibilities would be and where the delineation line would be between the general manager and individual board members. The reason that we're looking at it is that, first of all, we have a considerable number of new homeowners. Since COVID started about 3 years ago, 1/3 of the units have sold. So we have 60 odd new homeowners in the last 3 years. This is a big change. The buildings are also getting older. They're wood frame and there are more maintenance that we can anticipate that will continue. We do, Don will be talking in a minute about the heating program. We do invest a lot of money. We've got 37 wood frame buildings. It's difficult, I think we all know this, it's difficult to find contractors now. And it's particularly difficult in the Northeast England, where we don't have as big a pool of contractors to employ. New owners' expectations are increasing. I blame that on new owners, but it's not just new homeowners. Other people are coming up with issues that need to be addressed. A couple of board members have commented that other students obviously know about and it's nice that Steinberg generating and his experience who supports the idea of the general manager as so they take responsibility for budgeting all maintenance and contract work, procuring qualified contractors and coordinating necessary insurance and other administrative issues. The general manager would manage projects by the quality control issue. He would coordinate the supply of parts, materials, and approval of invoices to Julie. Well, Julie is our accounting person who works for the firm in Buckland. He would coordinate the various issues that crop up in fire alarms, particularly the ones in power buildings, water supply, ventilation, fireplaces. All of these issues have certain maintenance requirements that some falls on the HOA. Much of it also falls on the individual homeowners. They would mind coordinate painting and carpentry work. I mentioned earlier, sometimes the painters turn up and the stuff they're going to paint isn't there yet. And particularly for the general manager, the communication between HOA, the board, homeowners, and JP can all schedule repairs and maintenance. The general manager would have to be able to take a position on certain issues compared with the expectation of homeowners. Some issues are homeowners' responsibility rather than the HOA, and the general manager would be expected to be on top of these issues. The local comparatives suggest that a full-time position here local on-site in reasonably close would cost in the region of 90 to 110,000, divided by 100,000. And did a quick calculation on an average basis, assuming that the general manager would be able to achieve certain economies that it would cost each year $500 to $100 per year. Any questions on that?
No judgment. We had
Question was, basically, how does this general manager position compare with Wendy's positions? Wendy's job, Wendy's not here. My job is liaison, it's liaison with the farmer, with anyone who has something to work for the individual, whatever it is, arranging access and looking at that level. It's a more junior position. And at this stage, we believe that both positions could be complementary to each other.
Alan, I just want to say, I know that you and I don't agree.
Fair enough.
But I wholeheartedly I think it's about time. It's a lot. It's. Higher expectations. Be negative in any way. Because I've been there, well, and everybody does their best job, but we're not all professionals in every arena. And, but if we're hiring a professional, then our expectations can and should be higher. And
For the benefit of the remote participants, is in general agreement with the concept of hiring recognizing that although board members have been working on this, the situation progress to the stage where the general manager would be desired. Did I get that right? Yes. Good. Marty. Marty's asking are we looking for a proposal? Yes, you could propose, but we will have a search process. Marty, I'm going to give you a secret so that participants, remote participants.
Years of experience that has had before the section. These are the standard things that yes, super critical. I'm going to try this to do that. Without the mistake. Someone who
Yeah, I guess I might be wrong here.
I do just have one question. Would the expectation be that this person would be hired as an independent contractor or a direct employee? And does that have any effect on the fully loaded costs?
No decision has been made whether we come up on the payroll, probably would, but we may be able to do something that would really start in running, but we really have to talk there. We will have a search process. We look at individual candidates. We will probably come back to the board on that issue. It's such an important.
Alan, I just wanted to ask a little more about that search process. It's important that we start to
We will have a search process. All of them. Next page, please. Steve.
Back to the budget. Well, as you can see, the total income is planned to increase 6%. All that increase came from the capital reserve fees. As we already discussed, like the main issue is the long-term replacement of roof, like, so we take opportunity to increase that again. I think 6% is a very reasonable increase, considering the inflation right now. It's lower than the inflation rate right now. That can be achieved by keeping the operating fee flat year over year. So it's the challenge, we require maintenance, we increase the budget a little bit, but we exceed the budget last year. We also be able to be flat, no rebate from one other services. So that increase compared to budget last year, but it's bigger than what we paid, actually paid. So we, there'll be a change in the allocation and keeping charging a little bit less, so that's part of the reason for that. Most of the other expenses are relatively flat, like insurance, we went lower than flat last year because insurance is both premium and deductible. We have fewer claims last year, that's why we went lower last year. So that's roughly the change, right? Yes.
Just curious on the capital reserve fee increase $100,000, $75,000. That additional $75,000, that including $50,000 that the board decided to.
No, the 50,000 was from the result this year, the 50,000 is budget. Next collection.
Correct, this might be more helpful than. But
The
so,
collection will be different because they have 50,000 surplus.
It is, so it is. Okay. One other question I had was, in the balance sheet from 2021, had a balance in a special COVID fund of $100,000, and now that's gone. Wondering where that went, how it was distributed.
so just to clarify that, you didn't see it in the summarized balance sheet here, but it's not gone. It's included in the capital.
The line 36 is a summation of three numbers.
On the copy I pulled down from the website, it had a zero balance. As of June. The June 2021 had $100,000 in special COVID fund, and then June 2022 had a zero balance in that special COVID fund. So I'm just wondering that, was that going for operational expenses or?
So the 100,000 is still there. Well, the big risk we have right now is the receivable from GP of 125. So we might need to use that. We can see what happens.
Well, I guess you're telling me that it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there.
It's still there. So yeah.
It's not transfer. Is that for simplification? Then you make it more complicated. The number on the previous page. Go back one slide. It's included in that number here. Is there? Is that number is a sum of different things? The $100,000 is there. It was there the year before. Haven't changed, haven't been moved. The COVID reserve is there in both numbers. It went down for one reason, because we replaced a lot of the roof, and we use that money to pay for that.
So,
Let me just clarify. The balance sheet is posted on the here, posted on the website, so it shows it there. I believe 100,000 is shown separately. For the purpose of simplifying the presentation, it's put into that. So, as he said, it's our contingency against non-payment of 100,000. We keep that all, we do hope to get 100,000. How much coffee is in the? This stems back to what we called woodrot problem. I'd always refer to it as construction defect. It cost this HOA $1.6 million. We employed third-party clerk of works and our own lawyer, and we were working a great deal with big people looking at every unit. Deck. The problem is caused where decks are attached to the building at the attachment points. The contractors had not put in the flashing that is required by code. So we took legal action against JP. In 1 year, I forget which year it was, our estimate of the costs for that summer to replace it took 5 years to fix. Our estimate of the costs was $250,000. And we got JP to sign a policy note because at that point in time, the deal was they were going to be half and we were half. Following that year, JP went into bankruptcy, into receivership. So the amount of 125 is pre-receivership, so we should be receiving it on the receiver. We've initiated several questions through Steve White, and we haven't received any.
A couple questions, comments. First of all, if we do receive that $125,000, can we get a commitment that's going to go into that assessment balance for the assessment? I've mentioned it as before. I think that we have an operating expense that over to surplus at the end of the year. I know that it's going directly into the big fund. I contend that it should go against that assessment, pay down the assessment, which still results in it being big fund. What it does is sell it. It makes it a lot easier to sell a unit with assessment. I understand it's one pocket versus another. They still have a higher number of people.
That's a decision that we made up. And in the case of sale and process, it would of course be an adjusting entry. But if we look at here, for the purpose of some of the new owners, you'll see the deferred capital assessment of 300,000, which a year ago was 120,000 higher. Because of the $1.6 million of the construction defect, we had to pay that. We, the HOA, all of us, pay that. And we had 2 special assessments which were cash-based, and the third portion we used reluctantly. We used our roofing reserve because it's cash that we had. And we don't need the money this year, but we're going to need it in the future. So each quarter, we all get billed our share of 30,000 per quarter. You can see that at 200,000, that amount is going to disappear in November 2004. Although if I go to bring G up here, you might say by the time we get there, we might have to keep that as another assessment in order to build up the capital. that's really part of the $2 million elephant that I discussed at the beginning. I'm not too pessimistic about it. I believe that the HOA should be able to arrange bridge financing in about 8 years' time to get us through that concentration of roofing work. Apart from anything else, Mike Ferrari, we can't do 7 condo buildings a year, even if we had them. So it'll have to be spread out a little bit. How much is that going to cost per unit? $2 million. In the worst case, when we would have to assess individual homeowners, it would be an average of about 10,000 per unit. But then that would be repaid in subsequent years. Once the roofs are all finished and they're going to last for 30 years, there's a 30-year hiatus when we would build up the reserves for 30 years from there.
So I fully agree with all of that. And I think that, the board budgeting always has the board here, lowering the. So once we get through those difficult years, we can have that, like, whatever, it's all based on, say, $500 per unit, or whatever it takes, $700 per quarter, until we get through that, and then see that we've gotten through it and low. I guess my other comment though is that 125,000 that we're expecting to get from JP, given that that is for crop remediation, and these homeowners expect that to go against assessment. Because that would take about a year off.
Yeah, we don't have an answer to that. If we look at it on a broad lifespan basis, if we've got 37 units, if the buildings last for 30 years, then roughly speaking, we would need to be providing a building and a quarter, a roof and a quarter per year forever. And right now, the cost of replacing the roof on the condo building is about $150,000. Mike's going to get the final number when it's finalized. So forever, we'd have to have the P&L up to you see the capital reserve fees. That number would have to be in the range of $150,000 to $200,000 a year forever, allowing for inflation and cost increases. That can be handled within the current fees, and I hope that there wouldn't be any reason to put the number higher than that. Conversely, if we were to try and do it all through condo fees in now and in the next 7 to 8 years to build up a reserve large enough, we still will have a reserve at 8 years from now, but it's going to be $2 million short of where it needs to. It's not the end of the world if we come up with bridge financing, as long as we can pay that back to the individual and homeowners over the following 5 years. But the funds have to come from somewhere.
I agree, and I think that we should be collecting more upfront as opposed to all of a sudden finding ourselves $2 million year. And then all of a sudden putting that cost on the probably a lot.
That's why we're laying it out today. We're saying, look, 8 years from now, we will have a funding challenge of $2 million. Had it not been, I want to give Marty credit here. Marty's the guy who set up the roofing reserve in the first place. And we owe Marty an attaboy for that. At the time, we had no idea how much the roofs are going to cost. And the increase, if you go back to 2019, I think the cost of the roof that we were assuming It's certainly less than half of the 150,000 we're spending now. Part of the increase, I think if you look at some of the units that we've done, is the need to put a snow rail, the right word, snow rail at the edge to prevent snow from sliding off the composite roofs. The snow doesn't stick as well as it would on cedar.
Got it a while back, and the question I have about this whole thing is it actually possible to get somebody to loan you money for financing? And what terms? Because they don't have security interest in the property. And the idea is we're gonna do all this work and then we're gonna borrow money from, like, is there actually a market for somebody to loan money against construction on a condo? I don't know where we get finance.
That's a very good question.
I am.
Me too, I'm a finance. I was a banker. Yes, it's difficult to borrow money if you can't put something up in security. And we can't put any part of the HOA up in security. And we don't know. But I would have to guess that in the past years of thousands of HOAs have deal with similar situations.
We figure that out because there is no availability of financing. Our only alternative is to collect the money now and have the money available, pay for the work when scheduled. I mean, that's.
Well, the problem, to get back to the point that I thought I was making about the equity between the seller and the buyer, if you were to build up the reserve by increasing the condo fees now, which I don't think everyone is doing, and then at that point in time, the seller would want to receive some compensation for that from the buyer at the unit to negotiate. Worst case, my worst case, we would say in the future, maybe 5 years from now, listen, each one of you, each homeowner is going to have to somehow arrange $10,000. Take out a mortgage on the property, take out a second mortgage on the property, or pump up your existing mortgage. Or if you're flush with cash, just come up with $10,000. And people will be paying you that it will be out of the fund for the next 5 or 6 years after all the roofs have been replaced, because we expect that the new roofs will last 30 years. The existing ones, the ones that we've been repairing so far, were 27 years average lifespan. But we're counting on the new ones to be longer, maybe 35 years. But
So I think that point that you're bringing up, talked about two different approaches, two different options. I think that that's the most we discuss any particular budget area several years. And, I know that Lance thinks that I'm trying to cause trouble and trouble, things like that. For transparency, these conversations, I wouldn't sound as, loud and it wouldn't sound like I'm trying to construct anything. If we were able to, if we were invited to participate or listen in on board meetings throughout the year, whenever they're in. And that's the foundation. We have governing documents, and that's what the state needs to have. And it's just like the federal level. That all governing documents, that outside of the so, all it is something where people list their opinions, and you hear, it doesn't mean you have to follow, but you hear them, and then you can come to everybody. That's kind of the philosophy.
that's why we brought the issue up this morning. It's happening. I said, it's not urgent, it's something that happens 7 or 8 years from now. We have time to work out how we need to do it. The other part of that, I understand and empathize with your point, the current lack of board meetings. Technically, we kind of have a board meeting roughly every week. The bylaws would call that an executive meeting. We're addressing operational issues. I'm coming, I get emails all the time. We do need a secretary of the HOA. Right? I haven't seen any hands go up here, but we will be working on existing and new homeowners to get someone to take on that role. We're going to lose 2 people on the board a year from now, John and myself. So we will need board replacements. It's important to renew the board and to bring in new people who get involved. You yourself were on the board. Donna was up there. Donna up there was on the board. Marty was on the board. Probably other people who have done their time. It does involve work. That's why Ed and Andy, who joined the board last year, told us at the beginning of the summer they couldn't do it. That's why we need a general manager. Have the general manager, we can act like. In terms of the financing, I get requests maybe a couple of times a month from mortgage companies who are looking for current information on the part of mortgage going to the new owner or the renegotiated mortgage. So I do have a reasonable amount of contacts in the local banking community here. We can build on that, what how we're going to do. But worst case, everyone 5 years from now, everyone has to come up with $10,000, and if you look at repaid 5 years later, not the end of the world. That's actually a good suggestion. Should we talk to the buyers of the market and see if they could lend us some money? That's something we could do.
One thing you should do is on that $25,000, to make sure that it's on the books of GP and transfer to owners.
It is.
It is.
We have some correspondence from Uncle Goldberg acknowledging that this is a free receivership issue. You know, that and 50 cents. We just don't know.
He could deny it, he could pay 40 cents on the dollar, like Steve said, or we could get all of it because it was a free receivership item. It's going to be up to the receiver. We don't have much control.
But I think we rushed to $2 million to that here. It's an issue, it's not going to go away. We are going to have to come up with an answer for it. I think the important thing is all 182 homeowners understand that there is an issue that is going to come up in the future. Meanwhile, we're doing okay. The results are good. And we move on now to who's up next.
Here's the balls.
I think I'm covering all repairs and maintenance, except for Don, who will give me a break for speaking. First, roofing. Jesus Christ. Is there any questions that haven't been answered already in roofing? If nobody's seen a roof that's been finished, they are all in the North Village right now. In the buildings. I met with Lance this morning. He loves his roof. There's a couple other homeowners, John. Would have to say he loves his roof. They're complicated. And good news, I think Alan's 30-year estimate is probably about 20 years off. These probably are going to last about 50 years unless we find out that rubber and composite shingles deteriorate after 30 years. They are bulletproof. The railing systems that we are putting in are designed for the highest available snow load there is in the industry. There are 3 tiers on each
level, there's 3 rails, there's 3 levels of rails. They subsequently prevent the snow from coming crashing down on top of all this. Last year, unfortunately, when the roofs were designed, Alpine Snow Guards to work with EnviroShape. EnviroShape is the company that supplies our shingles. Alpine Snow Guards is the company out of Morrisville that supplied the snow guard. Nobody did the engineering on these, so we had to redo the engineering. 2 buildings that were done last year that have snow guards, which are about 1.5 inches tall. They are getting rails this year. They are going to be the last thing done. We anticipate them to start a week from Monday, because we believe that with, unless it snows this week, that will pretty much be done with our building projects in mainstay by the end of the week. We'll have some touch-ups, what not to do. So right now, we have, the ones that we talked about. We did do 3 single-family homes this year, and that was my problem, because a lot of the single-family homes have a lot of deteriorating roof lines that were never dealt with. Unfortunately, for single-family homeowners, they're 1 person rather than 4 people or 8 people complaining about the situation. I look at it as a cost comparative. If I have to go back to somebody's single-family home and repair their roof or their interiors over and over and over again, I want that off my list. So we decided to take on more single families than we anticipated. Coming into next year, the buildings that we have listed, 113, 118, all the way down, and you'll see we have 3 single families again listed at the end. We're going to determine that in the spring. We determine a lot of it by how much damage is done over the year. And let's say a single family number 6 has a lot of water leaks over the season, they're probably going to get bumped up. That kind of goes in, even though the age of the building is one aspect, it's actually location that really determines how bad their roofs are. Some people that have roofs and buildings out with no trees, your sun exposure is greater, so you only have deterioration of warping, twisting. In some cases, I'll take John's roof, for example. He had mushrooms growing on his roof. Problem, it's a little bit bigger problem than shingles falling off. And then, like we say in the last line, it's condition. Everything's about condition. And I could go through almost every single building, which I do on a regular basis, and I could probably pick out every single unit that's going to have a roof problem. I determine the problems by the interiors. Can we stop it? Can we stop the leaks and stop the water from coming in your house? Biggest objective. And we have roofs and buildings right now that I'm going into starting next week. 3 or 4 right off the top that we know are going to be roofs for the next couple of years, but we're going to repair their interiors because it's nice. It's something that nobody wants to deal with. Plus, it's a mold building issue. If anybody has a question on the building history, they're laid out below. Obviously, you can see the 2003 jump, which is what Alan's been referring to as the elephant in the room. If anybody has any questions on roofing other than what's shown, I would really suggest take a ride over to North Village. I think anybody who's seen the roof has a house that's done, they're gorgeous. And the 30-year warranty is cut and dry. They are 100%. It's not a prorated warranty. And I can pretty much guarantee that those roofs are going to last another 20 years past that. I go up every day with roofers. I look at conditions of your buildings. I am on the staging every day. I am on ladders every day, making sure that what is being done for the long term. Any questions on roofing? Well, I'll stop you right there. Gutters are in the list of needs and have-tos and wants, and I'll go as quickly as simple. Our roofing contractor has someone that said he will come in. I have talked to 17 gutter companies this year. Right now I'm down in Rutland. The gentleman that we believe is going to do our gutters for us he told me
couple of weeks ago through our roofing contractor. He only has about 40 to 50 houses before the winter set in to do before we get to us. One thing I have looked at, and this is how bad it is, gutter molding machine costs $15,000. So these are things that we've talked about, and we're trying to get ahead of this and come in with subcontractors that will do the job. And unfortunately, in some cases, like gutters, nobody wants to come here. A, we have too many. B, the conditions of the majority of our gutters are falling apart, downspouts are broken, cracks, and they know it's a year commitment. I don't have a good answer. All I can do is say that we have one person out of 17 that said they don't show up.
Gutter taken off, and there's a window well underneath, and it just fills. So there is something that can be done to prevent the damage.
As soon as I have a gutter contractor that will come, I have a huge list of ones that have been pulled, and I can, oh yeah, I have a list of gutters that have gone, I have a list of downspouts that are broken, damaged, missing. It's one of these things, and it's kind of why we're pushing for the general manager position. I can only call so many people in one day. I have, unfortunately, a full-time job. This is my second full-time job. Which you see me around that are on the resort. It's gutters are a problem, no doubt about it. And then at the same time, the gutter systems that we have right now are inadequate. They all should have been increased in size. It's something that we've talked about. The roofer and I, it's a direct correlation with as we finish buildings, we are trying to install new gutter systems, new downspouts, have the drainage work correctly. And it's very difficult to find somebody that wants to do this work. Anybody have any suggestions? Have a contractor they like? I'll take them out to lunch, dinner, weekend away. Or because it was done last year, the building was roofed last year, and the snow guards. So there's two snow guard systems that are established on metal and composite rails, which we're all pretty familiar with. That's the obvious term. The other ones are snow guards. They're literally a hat that sticks up above the shingle about 1.5 inches. They're designed to sit down off the edge of the shingle to break up the snow as it comes out. Last year, when the order was placed through EnviroShape, they worked with Alpine, which is the snow guard provider, to get us snow guards. Nobody actually did the engineering. So it's all based upon snow load. And the snow guards basically are designed for a 25,000 square inch of snow load. We run about 110 to 120. There's actually not engineering that is provided for that. So we cap out at 100 pounds of pressure per square foot coming down the roofs. That's why we have so much. So the two buildings that were done last year, they're actually getting the railing systems installed as well. They'll have the snow guards, they'll have the snow rails. Anybody who lives in one of these units, so happens to be, So you remember your avalanche coming crashing down? Yeah, well, that's the old roofing contractor. That guy, I'm sure this is gonna come up as a question, so I'll just jump into this one. Last year's contractor put into his original quote. He came to us at the end and said, we owe him X amount of dollars more for overages. We basically told him no. He has been paid his full original contract price, including the 2 skylights that we paid for, the 4 skylights that we paid for, walked away with the skylight and all the remaining materials and walked away. He has not contacted us. I believe he realizes that he'll never get a penny from us. What was done was incorrect. He came back to correct the problem because he did not install the snow guards correctly to begin with. It's a really, you really have to get in depth on how these systems are designed in the engineering process. The roofer that we have now literally, talks to Alpine on a weekly basis, sends outline pictures that were all documented for warranty purposes. And when the rails are installed in your building, you will no longer have avalanches coming down and trying to. No, we're gonna leave those there. We did talk to Alpine. There are instances that they've told, buildings and property management companies that, you know, it would work better actually with a double system. So, you know, and it's a location basis really. You know, those locations are more based into a wetter, climate, whereas the snow's, denser, heavier, has a lot more moisture to it. We have less moisture, you know, typical, you know, 350 inches snow. We only probably get, you know, 25% of that as a heavy moisture snow. Roofing questions? Oh.
I look out and see like these tiles.
Yeah.
Is that something, I don't think, big problem right now, but I don't think representative stuff.
I'm 454, I'm one of the same buildings, I pick up shingles on a basis every time there's a big storm. What I do, and so everybody's aware, you know, as I go through, you know, people go to every building every week, I look at the conditions of the roofs. It's a major problem. Spend a lot of money in roof repairs prior to roofing. We spend a lot of money on interior repairs because of roofs. I try to, you know, stay ahead of the curve. I would say if anybody has a shingle that they have on the ground, pick it up with your roof. If you see a bare spot, tell me about it. I mean, that's, you know, kind of goes along with security. You see it, tell me. That's, you know, I can miss things, I do miss things. But, you know, on the whole, if one shingle comes off, there's a double layer behind it because it's a wood shingle system. The overlap is deeper because it's a wood shingle system. So in general, you have a little bit better say on that. But yeah, if you see something that you're concerned about, shoot me an email. So if you have my direct line, you can shoot me a text or give me a call. You get rid of roof. Thank you. Painting update. Want to give me a breath?
Oh, thank you. I just want to say before I start painting, we had 32 people following us on Zoom, down to 22, so we must be boring them. But it is a sizable amount of people, and it is helping because we can't get too much around this. So I just wanted to let you know that we are being followed. As far as painting goes, the two guys, brothers that do our painting, we've now been employing them for 6 or 7 years. They were the best of the crews that we had. We had a really hard time. They're local. They do from 3 to 6 buildings a year, depending on the size of the buildings. And I've had of all of the repair crews we've had over the years, I probably had the least things about them, and probably the most comments about them. Last year, our budget, it came under budget again. The total cost for labor last year, 4 buildings was $66,000. Admittedly, those are smaller buildings. They were single family, I believe, and 3 4-unit buildings. When we do the larger buildings, it will cost more, but they typically come in under budget. And the only issue we have had is that there is a conflict sometimes between social events planned in the summer, weddings and things like that. My daughter got married up here this summer, so I don't know how busy it is. And also with the carpentry being done before the painting is done. That has been a serious problem. We are working on it, and I really hope to see that solved next year, because that slows the painters down. They give us a price for the building, they don't give us hourly price. And what that does to them is that they figure it's going to take 50 to 60 hours in the building. And because of carpentry not done, they have to do that days later, and can't just do it in contiguous fashion. costs more money, so we have to really make sure. That's right. Beyond that, I don't really know of any other issues with paving. You're welcome to email or text me and, you know, and I try to get that. Ski locker doors, if anybody wants to talk about that, it's an issue.
That's a different slide.
Oh, I don't want to. I just wanted to say, in advance, it's a subject, but yes, question?
How about, sunny side, touch up? Our building was painted in the past 5 years, it just seems to be like trim. It's a little flaky.
Okay, the question, this is for the people at home, was about sunny side trim touch-ups, because when it gets a lot of sun, it bakes it. And, to fix it, it's, you know, it can come off. I'd say the best thing to do is to go to the website, email me, and I'll make a list of buildings which we need to look at. And we can do those separately and do those on an hourly basis. Because that not only makes it look better cosmetically, but it also prevents damage in the long run. So that's really an important thing, because it is, for the most part, it's pine trim. And pine, as you know, does not last as long as. Yes. By the way, I don't hear that well, so I'll word out, please. Oh, you do this.
I got you.
Oh, thank you.
This may seem like it's not, but, what are some good things for this? What's the good thing for it?
So the question is about the colors of the paint?
Well, purple sided, we and then worse, so much.
I'm sorry.
Purple siding, green trim, and shiny red ones. Wondering if he's changing the purple to a gray.
So the color, I'm a housekeeper, I'm a retired teacher. And one thing I have never done is gotten involved in color cases, period. I don't care. That's the person. I would be happy if anybody brought up better ideas of color. We just followed through with the J used on the original buildings. And then we went to the new ones that had a different color stuff. We just kept going the same because it seemed like it says. Anybody has a better idea of color, that's fine. We do have paint in box already purchased. I didn't mention this, many people know this. We buy paint directly from Measuring Moore. We do not go to local retailers or anything like that. We stopped doing that about 6 years ago. And that saves us 30 to 40% a year on the paint costs. And it ensures that we get the same types of paint rather than somebody doing one store, another piece of like which are it was like them. But as far as the colors, I'd be happy to talk to everybody about that. So talk to me afterwards. It will have to be something we have. And I would want everybody in the association to be happy with. That's, I know that might get sometimes the family and the people together and say, what color do you want to use? I have three people, totally different ideas, you know, all mad at each other. So I don't want to get into that. Okay? There'll have to be a majority. Yes.
Doc, Steve Street, we've done this last year. You here? I don't see it. Maybe single family three. Single family.
Single family. Great, and it was not dated and should have been, is that?
I know you should be
All right, so single family three needs. All right, did you talk to me afterwards? Make sure I get it done. Questions? All right, thank you. Next.
To be fair.
Do this quick, and then we're gonna flip around. Can you do this slide really quick?
Really quick. On the repairs, I'm gonna go right to
Sea locker doors, that's gonna be the biggest question. Do I have an answer? No. Obviously, we all know what the problem is. I have two different companies. I have Pool and Lumber right here out of Vermont, and I have Jackson Lumber, who is one of the largest distributors in New England. Working on them. I have a list of every single one of our doors. Okay. I've come up with a couple of ideas, like slicing big doors in half. Both those reps are working with the list, trying to get any door manufacturer to actually provide us with all the doors one shot. Problem being is that they're all fiberglass doors, take a template machine to set them. Standard door costs you, as you see on the list, somewhere between $750 to $850. A custom door, we're paying somewhere between $1,800 and $2,200 for one door. Just to say that's ridiculous is an understatement. Problem is that they have to take the equipment and remove parts of the press machines to dig one door. We have to figure out a good solution. I can only say that if anybody knows a door manufacturer they would like to suggest, well, I'll take it. I've been to RV industry who presses thermometry doors to them. They will not do it either. Right now, it is an ongoing problem. We've had a couple of ideas gone back and forth, and they are literally temporary ideas. Interior doors, taking really heavy, put them outside, last for 5 years. So, it's not a permanent solution. That's doors. And if anybody has a question about doors, you can ask me one later. I know it's a long-term problem, and it's an inherited problem that I'm trying to solve. Some of the other projects that we are working on finishing up this year, we got some drainage that needs to be done. Most of it off the top of North Village. We have a retaining wall that is collapsing. You can see it if you go up the village chairlift. It's on the right hand side. Literally coming into the property line, it's going to be done before, hopefully before snow falls. One of the local contractors, Morse Excavating, is going to do it for us. It's already slated. And then the replacement of water lines is an ongoing problem. It is a insurance problem. Wendy and I have still trying to find a contractor that will do it for us. We're about to try to purchase the water lines in a mass purchase, and then get somebody to actually do it. The other problem with this is access to unit buildings, individual units that we don't have access to. There is a huge list of buildings, of owners that refuse to give us access for one reason or the other. And we're working as a board that we might go into these units as an emergency basis. Scott, who talked in June, who was our insurance rep, basically has said it to us. One or two more of these, we might lose our carrier. This is a big problem. We know it's a big problem. We are working on solving a problem like sea locker doors. It might sound like an easier problem than you think. Any of us that are in the 8-unit condo buildings, so look at our laundry line. We have to remove the medicine cabinet in the master bathroom. Not simple. It's not an easy fix. It takes time. It's something that we are working on, and I hope to have basically the where we lose all our, painting, carpentry items. This would be the mainstay of mine and Wendy's focus, is to get all these water lines completed before the spring.
Scott. Yeah, Scott, would you like to come up there? Well, with your water line, you have to ask Wendy to schedule it.
We don't have a vendor. We don't have someone to actually do it yet.
I'd like to introduce Scott Sutter, who is our insurance agent. The issue of the water line is important, but largely it's not able to use Scott and insurance.
Hey, everybody. Usually I have my family in tow. This is, we insure,
major resort associations across from New Jersey to Maine. And this is the only one to bring my family to. I love you. They're not here with me today. It's really busy off. My wife and I drove up this morning. So that are down. So just real briefly, rough math, about $200,000 in the past 5 years in claims tied to these water lines that insurance companies have paid for JP. They're insidious. These lines that come with your refrigerator that supplies the ice maker, they're really designed for temporary use. And they fail. Usually, looking at our experience, they fail in about 7 to 10 years. Sometimes we get up to 15. Looking at the age of the units, we're at that sweet spot that you can see in the past 5 years. These claims that just keep coming in, keep coming in. The only thing that's saving the association mathematically is that we're profitable from an underwriting perspective. They're charging enough money, and we've managed the claims well enough that we're still profitable. But all it takes is 1 or 2 more claims, and we're upside down. And there's just not, I mentioned this last meeting, there's just not a lot of insurance companies in Vermont that want A, and then 2 who want to do large residential association. So we're with Philadelphia Insurance right now. In fact, since the last meeting, one of the carriers that used to insure us just dissolved. There was a company called QBE that just wrapped up an entire book. So that's another carrier that just disappeared. You'll get there is nothing there. You can go back. So we're with a very good carrier right now. We want to maintain that. So again, if we can just get access to these units, like we're being real responsible, we're going to get it done. I just have to keep telling the operator that we're done. And if we don't have counted 46 units that we've already completed, it's awesome. Let's just keep that momentum up. Otherwise, insurance costs would get real high. So just anyway, any other insurance questions?
It's the washer and dryer lines as well.
And the washer and dryer lines. Essentially, what we're looking to do is replace them with steel braided lines. That's what we're looking to do. Get rid of the plastic and the rubber. The rubber needs to be replaced anyway, but we go to steel braided lines. Awesome. Top. Longer than the lines that come with it. Whatever the manufacturer's recommendation is on the steel plate, right? Thanks, everybody. I'm sticking around, so if anyone has any questions about the specific units, something like that. I don't do personal insurance, just commercial, but I can point you directly. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks. We have a number of slides here that we can come back to, but there's a lot of information in terms of maintenance, what owners' responsibilities are in terms of like fire safety, repairs, etc. What I'm going to propose is there's 2 slides at the end that we actually want to cover more. So if you're interested in this, come back to me, we'll share it with you, but we're just going to propose it. So let's talk about parking.
Would you like me?
Yeah, we do.
My favorite topic, like this. I got something for everybody. You might already know this. Got 2 deliveries this year, or this week, excuse me. I'm gonna put this down so I can show you all.
There are new parking signs. I have parking signs for every single building, every single unit, right? I wish I could put them up on the slide. It didn't work as good when I took them on my camera. I'm gonna try to do this with the microphone in my hand. I use mine because they are the perfect example. So we are, there are, what, 7, 8 individual parking lots that we have slated for that have major problems. Basically, we have lack of parking for 6 bedroom units. 6 of those happen to be the 8-unit condo buildings. 1 happens to be mine. Why I have my unit number in my hand. So what we decided to do in certain circumstances is that each 2-bedroom unit gets 1 parking spot. That's what's slated to them. 3-bedroom unit gets 2 bedrooms. For that matter, a 4 or 5-bedroom gets 2 slots as well. In some instances, we don't have enough spots for the 3 bedrooms to have 2 spots. So what we decided was that
the only fair way to do it was we would do the combo. In this instance, between, say, my building, my unit, and the next door 3-bedroom unit, we will have a sign. Be on the right, yours will be on the left, and in the middle, we will have a 454, 455 shared guest spot. It's a first come, first served, not very fair, I understand. But at the same time, we find that the majority of the people that are in your same building, if there's, if you've got, your next door neighbors coming up with extra people, I would say, be polite and move your second car out of the way. So we have, I believe I had 10 extra signs made for combo signs, because there are additional spots that are kind of up in the air, depending on the lots. We're trying to do 8 lots before the winter sets in. We got the signs on Tuesday or Wednesday, we got the poles delivered today. We have to have them, each one drilled. I actually have to go with Andy each time we go to do a lot, so he can approve it, so that when they go to snowplow, they agree that they're not gonna be in the way of snowplow systems and whatnot. The other thing that we've been talking about, and I believe that we are going to do, is in part with these signs, we are going to have tags made for our cars, so that when you park in front of your sign, you have your tag number, right? We're trying to solve the parking problem. The best solution that we come up with are signs and tags. And then we're also going to assign on the website, we put up the number for raised towing out of the report. Is it on there? No, bottom left. Great. Thank you, Caitlin. She's better at slides than I am. Raise knows the situation. We started this last year with them. We were only able to tow one person because Mandy and Ed were very nice and kept knocking on doors until they actually got the people to move. We're going to let you guys all go ahead and call Raise. If you can confirm that somebody is in your spot, tell them. That's kind of the way I feel. There's a lot of instances. I know a lot of people. I have several in our own building and the building right above me that, they have small kids. They come in 11 o'clock on a Friday night and go to the park. They have no spot. Not just one of their spots. They have no spot, and they're kind of left out in the dry. Left out in the cold, literally. And that's not fair. It's not fair to any of us. And really, what we found is after a year of trying to figure this out, it's short-term rental companies and the people that they're bringing in are the parking problem. In some instances, the short-term rental partner will leave, a booklet and say, yes, you can park out there with one spot. Since I was doing fire extinguishers with Wendy this year, I came across several 2-bedrooms that actually still say you can have 2 parking spots. These are actually in buildings that have major parking problems. Short-term rental companies don't care about our parking problems. You could call them and it goes along with the same security problem. We have calls into Mikasa. The manager ignores us. They don't care. They're not here. Short-term rental companies and the people that they bring in might not be bad, but they don't care about our problems. They don't care about, your next door neighbor can't park there because they're going to be gone in 3 days or 4 days. We need to make sure as a group, hey, if there's a rental problem, your neighbors know there's going to be a parking problem. Bring it to us. I will call that person directly and say, hey, we're going to give you one shot. That's all there is to it. We're not going to beat around the bush anymore. We're not going to have people left out in the cold, and we're not going to tell people that they have to park over the parking garage at their own unit. Parking is a problem. It's a snow problem. It gets bigger when the snow falls. All I can say is now we will have 8 buildings guaranteed or 8 parking areas guaranteed that will have the new signs. But buildings that already have signs, you won't get your new sign right away, but you'll get it sooner or later. Next year, we anticipate to go through the entire every single lot, installing a sign for everybody. In some cases, we'll have guests, or some of you guys have really big parking spaces. We'll say, it's just guest parking. But until they're all done, we just ask that everybody can cooperate a little bit.
And if you rent your building or if you rent your building through a short-term partner, you are responsible. We don't care. We will tow those people. And then if we get tags, the tags are gonna be replaceable we talked about, Mike has just come from Okemo in the past few years. He's on the board down there. They charge $250 per tag. So if your renter drives away with your tag, we're going to charge that unit owner $250 the next day. That is the best solution we can kind of come up with at this point in time. And if at the end of this month, and we've gone through and put up our parking signs, if you have any other questions, or you feel that you are a lot that needs to be addressed, just let me know. You can always come in and drill a couple more than the last one.
How much towing costs? How much towing costs?
What was it? I cannot remember.
300.
Yeah, it's $300, that's right, yeah. So the
Newport.
raised full tow at $300 off, and it will be assigned directly to the unit owner, or the owner, it would be towed to Newport, which is if you can find a way to get to know Newport, good luck. It's not going to be locked up or anything. That person just has to figure out a way. Anything else on parking? Everybody can name Mike Minkoff right there. He had the parking sign, the poles and everything. Yep, go ahead, yeah, can we put that up on the website? No, we can't,
What is it?
The numbers, the building numbers that we were getting to.
I can easily put them up.
Yeah, so we'll add that to one of those slides, probably to this slide. Taking spot. You know, it's gonna be the answer. Parking garage next to the ice house. JP has given us the ability to park as many cars as we want over there, and overnight parking. That's the overflow. People keep asking me, can we park the safe side? You can, before we get to it. If you go to, anybody can park at any point in time at the isolated parking lot. There's no limit, you could park there. I mean, I know you went away for a couple of weeks, you could put the second vehicle over there. You could park there forever. Not literally, but you know what I mean. They know what's going on, they know that it's overflow for us. And generally, I mean, anybody's ever actually parked over there during winter time, it's surprisingly active. I actually use it myself as an easy get into the building. If I need to do anything with any of the front desk people, admin, IT people, I always use the parking garage. It's simple, there's always one. Hence the parking tax. So if you're tagged, that's your sign. Only because this goes along with short-term rental problems.
Yeah, but if I'm not here.
That person would get billed, not you. How do we know?
It's a car, I would get to do.
Yeah, because we actually, so Reyes keeps a tally of who comes in and who comes out. So to literally tow somebody, they have to go to that car, take a picture of the license, and send it to Vermont Safety News. We are towing this car. It gets driven away, said. So we have a constant record of the cars that are getting towed and not. If somebody's car get towed by mistake, I'll give you a ride over there and the HOA will pick up the charge. But when we have a tag that goes along with the parking spot, there should be no reason. And if you decided to let somebody else use your spot, make sure your tag's left in the house. The guy next door. No, yep, no. We say that we're gonna go to that, the last resort is the home. So only because short-term rental properties, that's what it all comes back to. You know, that's really what it comes back to. Short-term rental companies have been a working problem. So the only recourse we have is to go to the owner of the short-term property. Rental programs. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say the majority of us in this room do not rent short term. If you do, what has really come to light is that through fire inspections, smoke detector inspections, that's all done by JP in the rental program. As individual homeowners, it's our responsibility to have our fire lines inspected, change the batteries, and it's homeowners discretion. In a short-term rental program, Vermont has set up literally a form that you have to fill out every single year. Something that was new to me, didn't even know, something that has not been taken care of at all. What we're going to tell everybody right now, you have a very short amount of time. You basically will have 30 days before you have to have this form filled out, have it inspected, and back to our office. And then, if that doesn't happen, then we're trying to decide on what the recourse is, because it's not as easy as, hey, you know, you're parked in my spot. It's just a matter of burning your house down. So the short-term rental properties, I know I keep reiterating this point, are a huge problem. Because we have probably a 20% unit list right now that deals with short-term rental companies that are absentee owners. They hand it off to that property manager or that company, and they don't care about us. We are a dollar. All it is to them. So to try, the only time they ever communicate back to me is when I actually come at them with a monetary problem. Say, hey, you know, I mean, I had one that literally, I mean, we have raccoon problems. Somebody has a short-term rental that let the raccoons out of the cage. The raccoons have been going in these people's attics for weeks. We caught the raccoon, their renter, let it go. Now, it may sound easy, but that means that I had our animal control guy up 3 times because of it, and he had to climb into a roof. You know, so that's $750 that I emailed the owner, said, you're going to pick up the staff. And they finally answered. You know, so that's the only way we seem to be able to get at the short-term rental companies, is going directly at the unit owners that this is your problem, this is your problem to address. You decided to get out of the JP rental program for good reasons in some cases. But if you're going to do it, this is the stipulation. You have to have this form filled out. It is a Vermont legal form. Vermont controls all of this. We will keep a copy. They have to get mailed to the Vermont Fire Safety Division. And I haven't found one in this entire complex that's been done. Ever. There's a big problem, right? I don't think I think I covered the rest of it. Let's see, dispatch. Oh, yeah. Well, JP, I think Steve could probably tell you how much he hates short-term rental companies too. They clog his office. I could give you on any given Friday or Saturday, go over that line. I guarantee you, there's someone in that line, in a short-term rental in the village, that I don't know where my key is. There's somebody noisy about it. It's not JP's problem. They're charging us $150 every single time that there is a short-term rental problem. It's not JP's problem. It's none of our problems. It is the short-term rental company's problem, and they don't care. Don't. I think I covered rental rooms. You're responsible for the action of your renters. Yep. And you know, I would like to say that, even though it sounds like I don't like short-term rental companies, there are several people that I know that rent their place, and they're very discreet about who they use, who they bring in, and they do a really good job of screening those people. And I have no issue with it. If you're doing your job correctly as a unit owner and a renter, oh, you know, hats off to you. If you make an extra buck, good. As long as it's done legally and it doesn't affect the rest of us, that's what it comes down to. Any short-term rental questions? No, I got one, Dad. Go ahead, I'll hear it.
I do run my youth short-term, program, I'm very active, I speak my guests. And so I'd like to put myself in that category that you're talking about. I will say that just being in the JV rental program doesn't mean that those guests are angels. We have a lot, it is much, much worse than the rental.
That's only because that's only because and Steve will say, hey, but the difference being is that we can call Jay and say, hey, you have renters, and Jay will come out right there and deal with that problem. As a person who talks to Steve almost every day, see Steve have coffee with him almost every single day. We talk about these problems constantly. And he's the first to say, you know, I know my people haven't been perfect in the past. And then there's been huge issues with care, maintenance, doors. He goes, all I can guarantee is that we have addressed those problems internally. My managers know the problems, and that if the problems persist, that manager's going to be gone. That person that's changing the bed sheets is going to be gone. They have gotten much stricter standards. And yeah, does JP bring, you know, a huge contingency of renters, and are there problems? Sure. The difference being is that they're able to control them. We can't control other companies.
Yeah, and that's not a problem with the renter, that's a problem with the home.
Correct.
And there are the homeowners that are absent, they don't even use their investment, and they go to something like the
Picasa, Airbnb, Verbo, I'll give you a list of them.
well, Airbnb and Verbo, it's totally different. Absolutely management company that runs the rental program for that owner.
But I have a rental company on process. She has 10 units. She's a rental management company. She rents her 10 units through Verbo.
Yeah,
So
I'm just voicing the gross mischaracterization of all short-term rentals bad.
and that's why I said, you know, again, perfect example of somebody that's actually doing their due diligence and making sure that their units taken care of.
I don't know why they care so much.
Because I could give you a list of the people that have never been here in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
A property management that does not live on premises, doesn't even live in the state. You know, there's stuff like that. I'm getting the hurry up like stuff. And again, I'm not saying that every short-term rental problem is bad. You know, it's an individual basis. What I'm saying is it's a constant problem for us. And you know, Alan says he receives an email, you know, almost every day. Yeah, I do too.
I just want to elaborate on him. I think on VRBO and Airbnb, distinguishing homeowner and manager. So that's another piece of information. On that specific property.
I agree.
You'll know who the homeowner is responsible or the manager. But the management companies are absentees. So
That's the problem.
The other problem is a lot of these ads for the short-term rentals say unit 6-8, unit 36. That's where we get huge market problems. One person rents the unit, lights 2 friends up, and then there's three people vying for one spot.
I know, I completely understand how it sounds when I get upset about short-term rentals. I do it because when I look at the list of problems, I mean, more than 50% of them are based on short-term rentals. And it's a gigantic obscure number. Like, you don't have 50% of people that are renting in the short term. It just so happens to be that's where the problems have mainly arisen from. And that's where the security problem came from. That's a short-term rental problem. We found out that these individuals were renting properties one night a piece and going back weeks later and entering and using the same codes. They never get changed. It's a security issue. Again, I mean, I have people in my building that do a phenomenal job of who they rent to. Never have had a problem with any of their renters ever. We couldn't say nice things about the unit owner and the people that usually come in. But that's one. I could flood you with emails. So, and again, If you're renting short term, did you fill out your fire safety inspection form?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Can you send me a copy, please? Awesome. That first person ever to actually answer yes to that question. Again, that link is gonna be on the slides on our website. If you do, it's state law. And it needs to be filled out, so we have an accountability of all the fire inspections. Does anyone give them?
Yeah.
And so, does somebody else want to do maintenance? Anybody else tired of me talking? I guess not. There are a lot of questions that come across my desk of who's responsible for what. And we try to kind of go through it right here. Everything on the inside basically is yours. In certain circumstances, it's built as a group. Central vacuums, if you have them. You have a central vacuum issue, it's usually split amongst 4 people. Those 4 individual unit owners will get involved if there's a central vac issue. Your appliances, your equipment, your windows and doors are yours. And I'll give it a perfect example. Skylights. Anybody who has had a skylight done so far, you'll know that we kind of got into a program. We're purchasing the skylight, but we're billing the individual owner for the skylight. Those are things that are unit owners. Water damage, again, these are all things. They unit owners at any point in time, anybody can change their water lines. And I get it, it's not fun, it's not easy. But we don't require anybody to, there's no requirement to be a contractor for any one of your units. You guys can pick and choose where you want to come in, where you want to do your kitchens, do your water lines, replace your windows, all up to you guys. You can look for, recommendations. I'd be happy to give you recommendations. Can't give a lot of recommendations right now, or lack of labor force, but any of these things are abilities for the homeowner to go ahead and do on their own. And then if I don't talk about grills and fire pits, Mike's gonna kill me. Again, small problem has been over the years, barbecues, fire pits. Fire marshal has reiterated to us that any grill has to be 10 feet away from the building during use. Any fire pit, and that fire pit needs to have a screen, right? A fire pit is determined as a pit with a screen over the top. That's 10 feet away. If that fire pit does not have a screen, 50 feet, right? So if you have a fire pit that doesn't have a screen, go buy it. So, but we've been talking about this. I believe that with the sale of the property, fire marshals will start coming down on us a little bit harder. You got new owners, new money coming in.
2 years ago,
Yep, you can, yes. You can, yep. Electricals. Yep, electricals, you can have them inside. You can put an electrical wherever you want. What's that? Well, that's a gas grill. A propane grill it can be stored next to the building. It can't be used next to the building. It has to be carried 10 feet away from that building at all points in time.
Renters that should be chained to rail. Don't forget the service with the fireplaces.
Grills, what did I miss? Anybody?
Service on the fireplaces up there?
Service is not up there. If it's not up there, I think we all have fireplaces, gas fireplaces. Gas fireplaces are meant to be serviced, every year, yes. Whether or not you have your standard plumber come in and check them, in some cases, it's as simple as, pilot lights have gone out and they need to be restarted. In other circumstances, walking around these buildings, there's units that have not been serviced ever. And the massive black soot that comes out of their exhausts is a credit to how bad it is. We've had buildings that we've taken apart, not as HOA members, where homeowners have done work and their fireplaces were never serviced. We opened them up. The 2x4s aren't charged from HOA. These are items that, as a unit owner, be wary of. If you have people renting, I would be more wary of. It's a very simple process to have ARE, one of them, NATO, come out and just, they do a very quick check. They check the gas lines, they make sure there's no blockage, they turn them on. They look at the exterior and make sure your flues are clean, unobstructed. Go ahead, Doug.
Question back to the fire pits. The fire pit's supposed to be approved by the board.
No.
So even though it's on common ground.
Same as Park Eagles, showing carpets.
Todd, what's your point? I'm curious.